G'day legends, and welcome to the second week of Harmonic Leadership, and discussing something which is often not talked about in leadership circles, and that is followership. It's a really pivotal thing to actually understand, and not only that, you know, a number of you have told me you don't have a gazetted position or an authorized position from which to lead. And a lot of you are now starting to realize that's not actually the case. I don't need an authorized position. I don't need authority, external authority, to be a leader. And remember, that's actually what this whole program's about, is actually internalizing our own authority, becoming the author of our own story. Now, do I have to lead from the front? Do I have to be the person who's always making the decisions to lead? No, well, the simple answer is no. And that's where followership comes in dramatically. I mean, the link that I've put in the email is to the Leadership Lessons to the Dancing Guide by Derek Sivers. Now, it's an awesome video. Most of you would have seen it, and I play it very regularly at the Masters anyway. But the thing is, just have a look at it, and he spells out followership in some detail really well, and talks about the first and second followers. But what is followership? Followership, in essence, is the ability to assist the team. It's to be a team player and to have the team in mind. In essence, one could say to be of service. So there's quite a number of elements to followership, though, and one of them specifically, you know, if you go to personality type, will be Southies will often be great followers, but they'll do it to their own detriment. Northies will quite regularly struggle to follow. Westies, they will follow if you have credibility, and it's been thought through in their mind that you have credibility. Easties, they'll follow if you're a good bloke. so the big thing is to understand that followership happens in different ways and different styles. Let's just have a look at the board for a moment. And if you'll notice, we've got 4 sections here. It's divided by independent people who, you know, are able to really critically think well. Dependent people who don't think for themselves. They're required to be told, you know, it's time to eat now and use your fork, not your spoon. Passive and active people, you know, people that sit back, as opposed to people that are proactive and go forward. So the big thing is the ability to think for self is this axis, and the horizontal axis is very much whether or not you're willing to take action. So on here, the independent people, but the passive people, the people that don't take action, these people, they quite often get alienated. Alienated followers. Yeah. And if you think about it, they'll often critically think, but they will just make comments. They won't take action in line with that. We'll often see this when we're doing, say, the spiderweb activity in the Young Warrior, and young men that I do it with, they'll make all these comments about how it should be done. It should be done like this, we should be doing that. But they'll take no action to actually put themselves into the fray, to actually back that statement up with action itself. So these people will often be armchair critics. And, you know, just think when you've been receiving that type of feedback from an armchair critic who's not willing to get in there and do the job themselves. This is why they very regularly get alienated. Over here, if they're passive and they're dependent on you, then realistically they're called sheep. And for a leader that has to deal with a whole mob of sheep, well, it's great to have sheepdogs, and sheepdogs are amazing followers. If you just think of that analogy, it's a really good one. So, cool, you're going to have sheep in your organisation, you generally do. Depending on the level of it or what your organisation is, it's a large-scale organisation dealing with, you know, many people, then quite regularly you do. If you're a smaller organisation, you can actually breed it out. And, you know, that's about culture of the organisation, and certainly a sheep culture is one in which I would really want to move on, because it makes leadership that much harder. Like, the energy has to come from you. And you have to realize as a leader that when you need momentum, getting the sheep moving, it can be really hard work for you to do it yourself. Just think of those times when you've had that idea, everyone said, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but no one's taken any action. They've agreed with you simply because you've done the thinking, and they've taken no action for you to get the momentum in the first place. It makes it damn hard. So having the follower, which is more proactive, like the sheepdog, is a really, really good one. So the dependent people, the people that don't think for themselves, but they actively get out there and do it. These people are called yes people. Now, Easties will often fall into the yes people thing. Why? Because often yes people have a need to be liked, need to be accepted, need to be part of the team. And then obviously that comes from an ungrounded sense of self, often a not knowing who they really are, a limited belief in their own self-capability, and at times, they can go high and low, they can bounce. So because they have big wins, big crashes, because they don't have that grounded nature. So yeah, you've got to be really, and you're probably aware of this as well, be careful of yes people. And if someone continually says yes, 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 then it gives you as a leader no team balance, in that no accountability back to the team. I have to be careful of yes people, really careful. Not so much now, because I've really learned to ground myself and my decisions. But very early on, if I got a bunch of yes people and my ideas went flying ahead, I got no one just drawing me back and saying, hold on a minute, James, are we running too quick, or is there another way? I didn't have that devil's advocate, and in a team, someone playing devil's advocate can be really good. If you want to look into that and how to structure a team well with doing that, look at Edward de Bono's 6 Hats, and he'll talk about having people put on a hat or a persona or a way of thinking around the table, in the boardroom or in the team, to fulfill that function, particularly of just being the devil's advocate, which can be really good. And then obviously these people are the ones you really want, and these are the effective followers. Now I mentioned sheepdogs before. Sheepdogs are intensely loyal. They understand how to move sheep, and they take a lot of effort off the actual stockman. If you actually see a true stockman work with sheep and their sheepdog, generally they might have one or two. They'll have a couple, but sometimes they'll only have one. We only have one real working dog, and he was a border collie, Kelpie cross, and he was just amazing at sheep work, because they'd spin him into a big circle. So 300 sheep, be spinning in a circle, and then at a point in time when you said yes, they would push themselves in, and that circle would shoot off through a gate. And the stockman is standing there, like Dad would stand there whilst the sheepdog did the work for them. Yeah. Now there's an incredible amount, just to go back to the sheepdog analogy, there's an incredible amount of training of that dog. Initially there's an incredible amount of time and resources invested in that dog to make sure that their skill level is that time. There's a bond with the stockman and the sheepdog. The sheepdog has a purpose, and they feel that they're living that purpose. Now, I know some people might be laughing right now and saying, geez, he's got another bloody weird-ass analogy. But just have a think about that as well. Like a proactive follower, a person who can be independent and critically think, but be a team player. Like be actively engaged in the team, not charging off and doing their own thing. Because at times, you've got to be careful about some of these followers, because if you don't spend the time bringing them into the team, then quite often they can charge off on their own. Now, a great example is kids. A young child who is picking up that there's stuff going around and just wants to help, and hasn't got all the experience, or has just picked up one or two things and made a series of decisions about what he thinks mum or dad want, can go off and they'll do something, and quite regularly it ends, going sour. It can end with collateral damage, plates being broken, etc., whatever it is. Someone picking up the plates from the dinner table and they go beyond their capability and they just fall everywhere. Now, the thing is, that person is, they're wanting to help, they're engaged, And how do we react with that when they break the plates? And it's quite regularly in some households, there's yelling involved. And you shouldn't have done that. Your body overstacked. You took too many plates all at once. It's like, just wind the apple cart back a bit and remember what we're actually working at doing. We're working about breeding effective followers. This takes time and resources for us. And like I've just been, Big Bailey's just come in and he's a resource that needs to be involved as well. Let's come have a look at Here's Big Bailey. Yes. Oh, awesome. Now I'm just doing a video, mate, so work with me. So one of the things about breeding followers is time, resources, clear and effective communication, and also giving them space, giving them latitude. I've talked before that harmonic leaders know how to give space to their team members so that they've got this rope and they can run with it. And at times, whoops. So my sheepdog's now out and we're back on. So where was I? The effective followers, they need resources, they need to be bred. And they've also, to be a truly effective follower, just think, you've got to have the same values as the team, but the leaders as well. And for that to occur, the communication of the leaders' particular values and then also discussion of the values of the organisation or the team must be also had. Now, it's not only discussion of it, but it's articulation of living it. Because one person's view of honesty can very quickly be very different to someone else's. An Eastie's opinion of honesty compared to a Westie's opinion of honesty is chalk and cheese. Westie's just blunt, says how it is. And Eastie has the ability, a grounded Eastie has the real ability to be diplomatic. And so at times, brutal honesty is needed, but at times brutal honesty is actually carcinogenic to the team. So it's this matter of understanding what's required at any moment in time. So therefore, how do we live honesty as an organisation? One of the big things about honesty is this desire to be heard, the desire for people to turn up as real, authentic people. So how do we do that? And most organisations do not have the emotional intelligence that we're talking about. So as team builders, which leaders are, then these are critical functions that you want to build into your island or your culture of your organisation. And also have to lead from the front. When we're creating culture, leading from the front is pivotal. But it's spending time with effective followers. Now, this all can be bred. You'll have, in your teams, you'll have all these different people. There's a place for everyone, by the way. There's a place for everyone. But where they sit in the team or the organisation is very critical to whether or not the team and the organisation will actually be effective. So that's got to be taken into consideration as well. If you just have yes people on the board with you, or in the decision making, the leadership team, then it's only going to go your way. You will not have any critical thinking happening for you, and it's really hard because then you don't get more robust plans and that big brainstorming happening because it's just coming out of you. Whereas having the alienated follower, you can work with these alienated followers because of their subconscious programs. You can shift them over here because they do critically think, and so often they actually have low self-esteem, which is why they judge everyone else. Obviously, that mirror effect. And if you can work with that and breed some loyalty into them, then what will often happen is that might actually tip over into the active and effective follower range. If not, you've got to ask the question, are they dead wood? Therefore, do I continue with them in the team? Is it too much energy to bring it over here? And that's a question that you realistically have to ask. So, that's followership from a leadership perspective. Bailey's chatting away. One of the big things for us leaders is to be followers. Now, to be, like when you've got a team, well, let's use a Japanese example. For the Japanese in corporate world, what they will want is their leaders to have been in every different department or section of the organisation. So they completely understand, well, to a level, what goes on in those organisations. So they'll spend, say, 4 months in one and around and around and around. So that as leaders, they understand what goes on, what the function of that department is, and they can lead them better. So, taking that analogy to leaders and followers, well, being a follower is a really, really big thing. So this week, you're going to have a look at yourself as a follower. What do I mean by this? Just watch in the family. Are you able to be led? To lead, you must first be able to be led. So, are you able to be led by your children? Are you able to be led by your partner? In the team environment, especially if you're in a gazetted leadership position, are you able to be led by your team in certain situations? Is there any rigidity into you letting go of control of the situation? Yeah? And this is the big thing. As leaders, to become followers, one of the biggest hurdles we have to get over is control. So just have a look at these things. Wherever rigidity happens within ourselves, what it's doing is it's indicating that there's some movement that can occur through work. Movement of the emotional block through work to release that and actually redefine your balance and understanding of that actual function. So, what do we need to do this week? We're going to have a look at ourselves as followers. There'll be a series of questions in the emails. Have a look at them. And then at the end of the week, we'll get back and see how everyone's gone. Trust it's been beneficial. Much love.